Right, I believe that we are live now, Chair. You're on mute, Councillor Ritchie.
Good spot. Thank you. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this remote meeting of the North and East Plans panel. My name is Councillor Kevin Ritchie and I will be chairing today's meeting. North and East Plans panel deals with applications from the North East and East of the city. The aim of the panel is to hear all the relevant information from applicants, members of the public and council officers to help members of the panel make their decision. I would like to start the meeting today by confirming that this meeting of the North and East Plans panel meets the requirements of the council's constitution, even though members of the panel are in remote attendance. While items today will be fully discussed as usual, remote attendance requires a few slight changes as to how I manage the debate. Therefore, can all attendees mute their microphone unless I invite them to speak, and this will avoid any background disruption noise. Can all participants please keep their cameras on during the meeting? And all participants will be invited to introduce themselves at the start of the public session to make it clear to public observers who will be involved in proceedings. And I ask for your assistance and patience while I go through this process. Also, in order to avoid any disruption to the meeting, should I lose my internet connectivity, I propose we appoint a deputy chair who will step in my absence. And I move that Councillor Elizabeth Nash be that standing chair, and I invite another member to second that motion.
I second.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. I'll take a vote by assuming members' silence as approval. I see or hear no objections to that. So thank you, Councillor Nash. Okay, so we've gone to the invites of members and officers. So do remember to not be like me and unmute and then mute when you've introduced yourself, and I'll go through you one by one. So first of all, in alphabetical order, Councillor Barry Anderson, please.
Councillor Barry Anderson, Adlin Wharfdale Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Councillor Dawn Collins, Horsforth Ward.
Councillor Ron Graham, if you're with us. I'll take that Councillor Graham can't hear us yet. So we'll move on to Councillor Jenkins.
Councillor David Jenkins, Cullingback and Seacroft Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Midgley.
Hello, Councillor Morale Midgley, Kippax and Meffley Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
Hello, Councillor Elizabeth Nash, representing Hunslet and Riverside Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Good afternoon, Councillor Sharp, representing Temple Newsham Ward.
And Councillor Smith.
Good afternoon, Councillor Trish Smith, representing Pudgy Ward.
Okay, thank you and welcome members. So on to officers, and first of all, Jonathan.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Carr, Head of Development Management.
David.
Good afternoon, David Newbury, Lead Planning Officer for the Plans Panel. I should apologise. It may look as though I'm looking out of the window. I'm not. I'm actually looking at the screen. I've got my laptop in front of me here with the camera. So that's why my head is tilted somewhat. So I am paying attention honestly.
Thank you. Glenn.
Good afternoon, Glenn Allen, Principal Planner for the Inner North East area of Leeds.
Thank you. Lisa.
Afternoon, Lisa Brannan, Principal Engineer, Highways Development Management.
Nikki.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Nikki Dial, Legal Services and Legal Advisor to this panel today. In the event that I do lose connection, I've got Philippa Plumtree-Parley as my substitute.
And Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. Debbie Oldham, Governance Services, and I'm clerk to the panel.
Thank you and welcome all. Are there any other officers that need introducing that I've missed that are here for any items? I know the support staff are with us in the background, so thank you to those. I'll take that silence as a no. So we move on to the agenda proper. So items 1 to 5, I think Debbie will take.
You're on mute, Debbie.
Sorry, Chair, I was on mute there. So under agenda item 1, there are no appeals against the refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there are no items which require the exclusion of the press and public. Item 3, I'm not aware of any late items of business. Agenda item 4, could I ask members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests? I'll take silence as there are none. Agenda item 5, no apologies have been received. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Is Joanne Gill still with us? I see a message that she had to log out. She got back in yet?
I am still with you. Yes. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh yes, I see you. Right. Thank
I
you.
can see and hear her.
Okay, so agenda item 6, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 13th of August. So first of all, do members accept these minutes are a true and correct record? And then I'll move on to matters arising. So I'll just hang on. Are we happy that they're a correct record? Again, I'll take your silence as approval. Okay, so they're accurate. Thank you. So any matters arising, members? If you'd like to indicate if there is anything. I see no hands raised. Okay, I believe David's got a couple of updates from the minutes that he's going to share with us. David?
Right, yes, thank you, Chair. The first one relates to item 16, which are on pages 6 to 13 of your agenda, members. It relates to the application for the care apartments at Grove Lane, Meanwood, that was discussed last time. The applicant has, since last plans panel, there have been discussions ongoing with the applicant about how they intend to proceed. And they've just recently confirmed that they don't wish to enter into further negotiations on this particular application. Members may recall that it was deferred for further negotiations, and if those further negotiations weren't fruitful to address the points that members had raised, that officers were to move towards refusing the application. So accordingly, that's now what we're going to do. We're going to progress to refuse the application under delegated authority, picking up on the points and concerns that members raised at plans panel. In addition, the applicant has indicated that they're considering submitting a further application, a revised application that will seek to address the points raised by members, and we'll just have to see if that materializes, and we'll keep you informed on that. Also at pages 10 and 12 of the papers, there's a mention of an agreement between Yorkshire Switchgear and the council that affected 2 green fields. And the resident who spoke at the meeting said that such an agreement existed, and that agreement said that those fields should remain undeveloped. We did give an undertaking that we would investigate this matter, and colleagues in legal have looked at this. And unfortunately, they haven't been actually able to find such agreement. The search is somewhat hampered by the limited information that we have before us, but we've been unable to find such an agreement. So that completes the update on item 16 of the minutes. In terms of item 17 of the minutes, this is the other update. This is on pages 13 to 15 of your panel papers. There is a correction to the title and the application reference, but I won't trouble you with the detail of that. But I just want to confirm that a tree preservation order has been placed on the oak tree. And that tree preservation order was made on the 20th of August 2020. So that's picked up on the particular concern that was raised by members at the meeting. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, David, and pass on our thanks to the officers that have done that with the tree preservation order. That was a big ask of the this panel last time, so thank you. Any members want to come back on anything that David said? I see no hands, so we'll move on to the next agenda item listed, item 7, which was a change of use from a residential property to a house of multiple occupation. But this has been added to the agenda in error and does need to be formally withdrawn. So I'm going to bring David just to explain the background to that application and how we move forward. David?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, we're formally withdrawing the item from the agenda, as you say, and my apologies to members and to the applicants as well. This item was placed on the agenda in error. The application site actually falls within the area that is dealt with by our South and West Plans panel, and accordingly the North and East Plans panel doesn't have just jurisdiction to deal with the application. The intention is now to place it on the next available agenda for South and West Plans panel, and I just wanted to pass on to my thanks to Councillor Nash for spotting the error in the first place and notifying us of that, but also my apologies for the error in the first instance. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, and again my thanks to Councillor Nash for picking that error up. So just to confirm, members, this item 7 is formally withdrawn from our agenda. Okay, so we move on to agenda item number 8, which is a variation of condition 3 on opening hours for the delicatessen at Harrogate Road in Chapel Allerton. And I believe Glenn's going to present this to members. So over to you, Glenn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that my presentation will be somewhat short today, given the considerations that we've given to this proposal and made for a relatively straightforward amendment to an existing condition. As members will see from the report submitted, that it's seeking to increase the hours of operation of the property from 7 o'clock in the evening till 11 o'clock in the evening. Pam, if you could just move the slide forward, please. For those members who are on Plans Panel when this was originally determined, you can see there the location of it. It's in the town centre of Chapel Allerton, opposite the junction with Allerton Hill, and the properties immediately to the north and south and opposite are all in some sort of commercial activity. Members can see from that site plan there the pedestrian access onto Regent Street, which we'll come on to a little later, but the main entrance is actually on the Harrogate Road, just near the O of the big PO in the centre of that slide. If you could move the slide on to the next one, please. That's an aerial view of it. We include this to show the town centre nature of it, Harrogate Road being a very busy through route to that centre. And of course, members will be aware that the site that's shown on that aerial view as a construction site is now the Aldi supermarket that's been in the town centre for a good couple of years or more, and was granted permission by this very plans panel. If you could move the slides on again, please. Now, this is a useful slide for members, and I think it's possibly this one and one later on in the presentation that we'll perhaps be referring to more regularly. But the idea of this slide hopefully shows members the layout of the immediate vicinity around the application site. As I said earlier, the properties immediately to the north and the south are in commercial use, but as you look at the properties that would lie to the east, which is to the right of the property as we're looking at it. You start moving into a predominantly residential area, although the property on the opposite side of Regent Street on that plan, immediately underneath where it says Regent Street, is a Thai restaurant. And then just off that plan, which isn't shown, is a public house which has been there for a good number of years, called the Regent. And then the land use generally gives way to being wholly residential in that direction. The application, as I say, is to increase the opening hours to 11 p.m., keeping the opening time of 7 a.m. the same as what's imposed at the moment. And what we've done is we've done a little bit of digging around as to what this town centre offers presently in terms of these kind of uses and their hours of opening. So just for some background information, there are a number of licensed premises, a couple of which also include just retail premises, such as the Co-op and the Aldi, and there's a small independent retail outlet. But within the town centre area, what we've been able to identify is 15 pubs and restaurants that are classed as part of Chapel Allerton Town Centre. 6 of these 15 pubs and restaurants have opening hours that actually go beyond what the applicant is seeking for this particular premises. With the public house, the Regent, having opening hours on Thursday to Saturday till midnight. The Thai restaurant, although we understand that they don't actually make full use of their licensed opening hours, they also are allowed to open until 11 p.m. I'm sure local people will be able to comment on that more, but what we understand is that they actually close at 10, but they do actually have a license till 11. In the consideration of the proposal to extend the time to 11 o'clock in the evening, the officer who's dealt with this has looked at the various comments that have been submitted by the various local residents and people who have objected to the proposal, and in taking on board their concerns regarding the possible use of the terrace and outdoor garden space. We've talked to the applicant about including a restriction for the use of them from 9 o'clock, so that the actual exterior of the property wouldn't actually be able to be used from 9 o'clock onwards, and that also that any customers leaving the property after 9 o'clock in the evening would actually have to use the Harrogate Road access and egress point, the main front door, so that the activity, when it's concentrated on people leaving the premises, would actually be on the town centre side of the building rather than on the residential side. And our view is that on balance, given that this is a town centre location and those safeguarded restrictions to be built into the wording of the conditions that are recommended in the report, that the 11 o'clock opening time would actually be acceptable. And with that, Chair, I don't think I really have anything else to add at this stage. If perhaps, Pam, we could just go through the slides, if you could move them forward and help members to refresh their memory exactly where this is. The pastel coloured green shop frontage is the actual application site, and that's the Harrogate Road frontage. Next slide, please, Pam. This is the vehicular access to the back. That vegetated area at the front of the picture there is actually like a communal garden space, and then as members can see, there are vans parked in the space there whilst the applicant is undergoing the refurbishment and extension works that have previously been approved. The actual application site is difficult to see from that angle, but that's the view from Regent Street. And next slide, please, Pam. A closer view of the same view there. Can we have the next slide, please? That's the terrace that is under construction, as you can see in that photograph. That's the area that will be restricted, or part of the area that will be restricted to the 9 o'clock use. There's also an area to the left-hand side of that photograph, which is the laid out garden space that would also fall under that 9 o'clock restriction in terms of use. Could we move on to the next slide, please, Pam? These are some of the extension works that are under partial completion from the original permission. And the next slide, please. And this is the other slide I've made reference to earlier on for members' reference, which I think is probably quite useful. As members can see there, the blue blodges are the retail that forms part of Chapel Allerton Town Centre, and the slightly red blodges are the ones that are food and drink based within the immediate town centre. If members can identify the Regent Street line on there, you can see that the Thai restaurant is indicated as the red rectangular L-shaped splodge there. And I point that out particularly so that it gives members a reference to actually where the application site is, because on this particular schematic, the application site isn't identified as a food and drink outlet. It is actually in the blue area that is to the north of Regent Street, north of Regent Street. And just for complete context, the other red rectangle to the
I can't get into it on me Apple or the bloody. Well, I'm on the screen.
I think that's Councillor Graham's joined us. No, I've finished after I've said this. I'll hand back over to Chair once I've said this. The red rectangle that members can see at the north of Regent Street to the right-hand side, that would be the Regent Public House. So there, members have got the context of the retail and the food and drink outlets within the town centre. And as I say, for the reasons given in the report and the safeguarded recommendation in terms of the use of the external space, we recommend this scheme for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Glenn. Is Councillor Graham with us? Councillor Graham, can you hear us now? We could hear you. Do you just want to? Councillor Graham? Well, he's with us. I can see him, but he doesn't appear to be able to hear us. Okay, we'll press on with the meeting.
Chair, can I just ask, do you want the slideshow going down? Or do you want it leaving up for questions?
We'll leave it up for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it up for now.
Okay.
Thanks, Pam.
I used it this morning, love. Yeah. Yeah, it's working. Yeah.
Councillor Graham. We can hear you, Councillor Graham. Can you hear me? Right. Somebody could do with getting a message to whoever's with Councillor Graham.
I've just muted Councillor Graham.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Right. Sorry about that, everybody. So we have speakers present who wish to speak in objection to the application. I think we've got two speakers. You've got 4 minutes between yourselves. So we have Ms. Joanna Gill and Ms. Dee Marshall. So when you're ready to speak, I think Ms. Gill's speaking first. You have 2 minutes. Pam's on the clock. So just, she won't start until you're ready to start, and there'll be a nice, well, a break between Ms. Marshall coming in. So no need to sort of fret and panic and rush. If the time runs over, we'll indicate and just finish the sentence that you're on before handing over. Okay, so when you're ready, Ms. Gill, over to you. Joanne, can you hear? You ready? Joanne, we can't hear you.
Are you on mute, Miss Girl? Joanne Gill, can you hear us?
Right, it's just finally come on. There's this mute that set me in a problem I've got already, you see. Right, I've got the mute on.
Right, we can't hear Joanne. Joanne, can you hear us? Can you let us know in the chat, please?
I can't hear them. That mute was just come up after all this time, look.
And I think we need to mute Councillor Graham again.
I've just muted him
Thank
again.
you. Can we move to Ms. Marshall?
Yes, if you can see and hear me.
I can. So just before you start, Ms. Marshall, I'm not sure if Joanne can hear us. She's not responded on the chat. But you go ahead in your own time, and then we'll see where we are after your 2 minutes. Okay. And hopefully Joanne can sort out her microphone before then.
Yeah, we
When
sort
you're
of.
ready.
We were planning to sort of follow on from each other, which makes it a little tricky. Should I run through the points Joe was going to make in case we don't get her back?
So do you want the full 4 minutes then? Or look, I'll be flexible and then I'll give Mr. Solaris the same length of time. So I think that'd be sensible.
Yeah.
It looks like we're not going to hear from Joanne. So yeah, please do. So when you're ready.
I'm in, Kevin. Kevin, can you hear me?
Okay, thanks, Councillor Graham. We can hear you. Yeah.
Good lad, yeah, brilliant.
We're just on to the speakers against the application. So, Ms. Marshall, when you're ready.
Thank you. So Joe was going to say I'm representing the views of the majority of residents, which include 8 young children who live on Back Allerton Terrace. The residents have no objection to extending opening hours within the premises, but we do object to extending hours because there will be a public nuisance to neighbours. The address is Harrogate Road, but we feel this is really misleading because although that area, Harrogate Road, is, as the officer has quite rightly said, a very much commercial area, the back of it is very much a residential area. All our homes along Back Allerton Terrace look directly onto this development. The property was originally a house. When we bought our properties, you know, this was a house, and there was a change of use granted, as you will be aware. At that meeting, the developers made a very passionate plea that it would only be a small family-run deli, and it would be serving no alcohol, and it would close at 7 p.m. Well, less than a year on, they're reneging on those promises that they made to the planners and the developers, which we feel is quite disappointing. The planners at the time restricted the opening hours when it was a change of use to 7 p.m. because they noted in their report that the back of the property is in a residential area and nothing's changed. We're sort of still here. We think the opening hours, because it now has an alcohol licence, should be 10 a.m. in line with most of the other businesses in Chapel Allerton. We don't see the need to open at 7 a.m. In the spirit of compromise, many of us are saying, let's allow an 11 p.m. closure inside, but let's look at 7 p.m. for outside, because the large roof terrace and the beer garden, where people will be eating, drinking, smoking, that's going to make a huge impact onto our lives, even if that stays open till 9 o'clock, because we have there are 8 young children living in this row. So 7 o'clock, we feel, as the planners did originally, would be a good time for an acceptable time for all parties for closure. We genuinely think that by compromising and saying, yeah, inside 11 o'clock, fine, outside area 7 p.m, we think that's a good compromise for us, not everybody in Chapel Anderson, I should say, but for us, and a solution that should be acceptable to both parties, we hope. Thank you.
Okay, does that covers what you wanted to say as well? Does it? Dee, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, me. Yeah. I sort of merged the two. I don't know whether we can get Jo back if she could add anything that I may have missed. But
yeah, if you're there, Ms. Gill, can you hear us and can you speak? I'm guessing not. Can we just go to speaker view, please, Pam? Sorry, then I can see more faces. Thank you. We can always bring the presentation back if questions arise. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to questions for, it sounds like it'll be Ms. Marshall only, unless Ms. Gill can join in as well. So members, if you'd like to indicate any questions. Councillor Jenkins.
Yes, hi. To Ms. Marshall or, well, yes, the objectors. Do we know if the premise has actually been occupied yet and are actually operative even during COVID?
No, there's a considerable amount of building work has been taking place. That's been going on for well over a year now, and there's still a lot of building work taking place. So yeah, there are no plans to. I don't know what the plans are, to be honest, but there's a lot of building work taking place.
Okay, do you want to come back, Councillor Jenkins?
No, it would be useful to know what sort of experience there'd been, but obviously that not been open yet, so
yeah, I mean, and it's important to remember this. When we bought our homes, we live here. It was a house, so we have no experience of what it's going to be like, but we know that from the building noise, we are very close to the roof terrace and the beer garden. We have no problem with the front. We've no problem with inside. What really worries residents, particularly those with young children, is this very large roof terrace and beer garden, which are, as I say, very close to our homes. That is a very big concern. It's been very upsetting for a lot of us that we're going to have to live with this, not just during COVID, but in perpetuity. COVID hopefully will be gone one day. And the business may be owned by another company at some stage in the future. It may be taken over by a chain, and it is, it is a substantial roof terrace.
Okay, thanks for that. You going back into your presentation there.
Sorry.
We've had those arguments, so we'll just stick to answering questions for now, if that's okay. Yeah. Any more questions from members? Councillor Jenkins again.
Sorry. So have you had any discussions with the owner of the property?
Not really. We did, there was an impromptu meeting on the street where we asked to see them, the developer, Hugh Jory, and Tony Slaras, the manager. We asked to see them, partly because we were concerned about the building noise, which has caused a lot of disruption to our lives, starting very early, as early as 7, finishing late at night, 9, and on bank holidays. So we did ask to see them informally, just to sort of see if we could resolve that. And we did talk to them about potentially finishing at 9 o'clock. There are mixed views. I've got to be honest with you. Some people feel very strongly that it should remain as the planners agreed at 7 p.m. Other people are happy to accept 11 p.m. inside and 9 p.m. outside. Jo, the consensus we feel is that 11 p.m. inside would allow, support the business. 7 p.m. outside allows us to lead our lives with as a reasonable little disruption, hopefully.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, members? I see none. Just a question from me then. So in terms of the headline application, yourself and Ms. Gill are not objecting to the opening hours.
Yeah, we'd like opening. We feel that because they now have an alcohol license, we think it should be 10 a.m. rather than 7 a.m. in line with most businesses in Chapel Allerton.
Okay.
So the opening we're looking at, we would say 10 a.m. We're less concerned about that, to be honest. It's the roof terrace and the beer garden, which is our main concern, and we would like that to finish at 7 p.m. the outside area.
Thank you for clarifying that. So members, one final sweep for questions. David, Councillor Jenkins' hands up again. Is that in error?
Error.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you for that. So we move on. So I'd ask you now, Ms. Marshall, to mute and not take any further part in the proceedings. And thank you for your contribution to it so far. Okay, so we have Mr. Antonio Solaris, who's the applicant, and he's going to speak in support of the application. And I made it that, well, you have your 4 minutes. Ms. Marshall, I didn't quite take the full 4 minutes, but it was available. So go ahead when you're ready, Mr. Solaris.
Good afternoon. I'm Antonino Solaris, and I'm the owner of the business. I'd like to start saying that I've been living in Chapel Allerton as part of the community for the last 14 years. My son goes to school in Chapel Allerton. My mom came from Italy just to run the kitchen of this project. I've got a daughter, 19 years old. Then she recently lost her job because of COVID, actually, in hospitality, and now she's going to come and work for me. I never imagined at the beginning when I started this project, then obviously we were going against this pandemic. The only things that I knew was that I wanted just to reach my dream to give this community a little bit of my culture and a little bit of my Italian country, yeah, especially during the upset of the UK leaving the European Union. I was even more determined to reach that kind of project myself. You gave me the chance at that time. Even if the 3 ward members were against me, actually. Now, at this time, restrictions are much more than what they were before. And I asked some advice, some people around in the similar business, and they all say to me, the answer is click and collect and even in meal salaries. That's what they say to me. I remember at the original meeting, then I asked if I could open a little bit later, and I've been told that I had to do another application. So here I am to do it. I hope that when we're going to get back to the normality, I like to see inside my place people enjoying together some, fabulous Italian cheese coming from Italy, some fabulous cured meat coming from Italy, combined with a nice glass of wine, or even better, some handmade cake and pudding and dessert with some sweet wine coming from Italy. And, and I already placed all my order for this. I've got cheese. I've got 18 different types of cheese coming from Italy. I've got a dozen of different types of salami coming from Italy already. I've been dedicating the last 2 years of my life in this project. And to be honest, I invested on the future of my family as well with it. I complain with all the restriction to be sure that I wouldn't disturb anybody around. I've been listening to my neighborhood and I try to meet all their concern. I do want to live happily with all of them, to be honest. I've been asked to close the outside area at 9 p.m. and I agreed with that. And I recorded on the website the day after just to show them that I will keep my ward. I've been asked to close the back gate of the property in Ellerton Terrace between the disabled parking on my land and my garden, and I agreed on that, as long disabled still have access, obviously. At 7 o'clock, and I agreed to close at 7 o'clock on that side. I tried to do everything I could to make everybody happy, honestly. But I just realized it's not possible, basically. I know you will look of the evidence and no on unfounded objection. The environmental officer did it, and the conclusion is very clear. So, I mean, just yesterday, I agreed with my contract with BIFA to collect my waste between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. once more to don't disturb my neighborhood, as I have been asked at the licensing meeting. I really want to try and keep them happy as much as I can. After all, I hope they all gonna be my customer, to be honest.
That's 4 minutes, Mr. Solaris.
Mr. Solaris, had you finished your sentence? You may finish that sentence.
Yeah, I just want, my task now is just to build this building, this hospitality business, and give my family a future. I mean, you helped me with this at the beginning, and you gave me the chance to start, and now give me the chance to make it work. That's all I'm asking about.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm here to answer all the questions that you need to.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to...
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solaris. That's it.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to members' questions. So again, if you'd use the raise hand facility, and I'll bring you in. So do we have any questions for Mr. Solaris? I see no raised hands at the moment. Oh, sorry, I do. Councillor Midgley. And then Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I just wondered, is the outside area, the beer garden as it's called, and the terrace, is that just available for diners? Will it be just diners in the restaurant that will be using that space? Thank you.
Yeah, I like to underline that it's not a beer garden. I'm not even going to have draft beer in that place. I mean, I want to keep it a little bit more classy if I can. So there's going to be a red wine combined with a bit of food, a very restricted actually menu, and some cheese board, because I've got a deli on the other side of the road, obviously. So that's going to be for drinking and eating. Of course, I'm going to have a seat outside, but it's not just for eating, it's going to be for both. If you want to come there and have a glass of wine, why you cannot have a glass of wine? If you want to come there and have a tea, you can have your tea. But it's going to be a very quiet environment, because that's what I want. I want something to be more classy. I don't want a pub. I don't want, drunk people around. During the day, I want to just, I like to remember. Then it's going to be a cafeteria. I mean, we're going to do handmade cakes in there. There's going to be coffee, tea. I need to be very careful to mix those things. That's why I want to keep a very, classy profile. I don't want to create anything noisy, anything that it can upset, actually, the neighborhood. That's the last things that I want.
Thank you. Councillor Midgley, would you like to come back?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Councillor Smith next.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Solaris, I just wondered if you were to limit the outside use to finish at around 7 p.m. as per the neighbours and objectors' suggestions, would that harm your business model, or would you be agreeable to looking at something like that, just so that you could help the objectors a little bit? Thank you.
Well, I already reduced it until 9, so I won't be happy to reduce it until 7. And yes, it would affect it, I have to say, because, I'm going to have a sort of a takeaway as well. And I mean, I'm going to have a way in and a way out, and at least until 9 o'clock. If I have to shut the place at 7, that means, especially during the COVID time, then I've got just one entrance and one exit. And that's going to complicate very much my business plan, actually. And also, you know, a lot of people like to go outside and have a cigarette, which they cannot do it inside. So why don't give them a chance to do it at least until 9 o'clock, which to me, it seems a decent time.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, anything?
No, that's fine, Chair. Thank you.
Any more questions from any members? No, I've two questions, Mr. Solaris. First question is, if it is the 9 o'clock cut-off that's approved, how will you manage that in terms of, you know, the cut-off when people sit down? Will you get to 9 o'clock and say, everybody in, you know, this type of thing? So how will you manage that? And the second thing, in your presentation, you picked up about closing the access from the disabled parking bay, but that's not actually down as any of the conditions. We've got a condition 14 recommending no access and egress from Regent Street, which isn't the area of the disabled bay. And I might put that, well, I will put that to officers as well later, but if you could just expand on and well answer those questions, please. Thank you.
Well, the back gate is because of the licensing committee, and that's why I just agreed to do that, basically. Obviously, on the base, then the disabled people, they can still have access. So one member of the staff is going to go and open the gate for them, but all the rest of the customer cannot have access after 7 o'clock. And that's because I don't want to disturb the back Allerton Terrace once more, but they can have access from Regent Street, which is until 9 o'clock. I mean, at the moment, I don't even think I'm gonna open the cafeteria because of this COVID situation. It wouldn't be very much wise for me, but I definitely gonna open the takeaway, and I definitely gonna open the deli. So, I mean, what else?
So the first question I asked was how you would manage that 9 o'clock cut
Oh
off.
yeah, oh well, but that's very easy. You know, 10 minutes before 9 o'clock, I'm just gonna go around and very politely say, this is the policy of this place. At 9 o'clock, everybody has to get inside. If you want to stay outside, I'm afraid you're not allowed. That's what I dealt with people, and that's what I'll do. I mean, otherwise,
okay, that answers my questions. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So, a final sweep for members? Councillor Smith's hand is up, but I don't know if that's from the previous question.
I'll just have a quick question,
Yeah,
please.
sure, yeah.
If I may, sir. So you at 9 o'clock, well, 10 to 9, you're going to ask customers to go inside the building or to leave because they can't stay outside. But what if your inside is already full? How are you going to manage the situation then?
Sorry, there we go. Well, to be honest, I'm going to make sure that it's not completely full inside. That's what I have to monitor it. I mean, and to be honest, I think during the winter time, I've got some doubt that people are going to be outside until 9 o'clock anyway. People probably during the winter are going to be outside until 6 or 7 because, you know, frankly, it's cold. That's more during the summertime. So, and during the summertime, I have just to be sure I have to manage the place in the right way. As I said before, the question of 9 o'clock is up to me. I'm going to have to explain people as a policy of the place, then after 9 o'clock, they cannot stay outside. The same situation, if they cannot stay outside, they have to get inside. So I'm going to have to keep space inside eventually.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Councillor Smith, anything else? Anything from members?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Solaris.
Final sweep from members. Now, I did see a round of applause, I think, from David. I don't know if that was an error, or if you were applauding myself or Mr. Solaris. I don't know. Probably the chair, I imagine. Did
Yes,
you
of
want to
course.
say anything, David, at this point?
Yeah, if I may, sorry. My hands up facility is limited to a thumbs up or a round of applause. So I'm not really quite sure why my system is different to others, but that's what I have. Yeah, there was just a couple of points I just wanted to tidy up, Chair, before we go into questions for officers, if members have finished asking the questions. One of them you actually covered in terms of clarifying that condition, I think it's 14 on the papers, actually restricts the access and egress by customers from Regent Street after 2100 hours, and not the access to adjacent to the disabled parking space, which is at the back of the unit. I just wanted to draw attention, I'm sure many members have spotted it anyway, but one of the speakers, the speaker who couldn't speak, as it were, Joanne Gill, did leave a summary of her points in the comments page, so it is there for members to read. And I just wanted to pick up on a point that was made by Ms. Marshall about the opening hours and the original restriction that was placed, and just to explain how that actually worked. When the application was submitted, they did apply for opening hours from, I think it was 7 o'clock to 7 p.m. and that was stated on the application form. So when we processed the application, we reflected that in the suggested condition. That wasn't a comment that other hours may or may not be acceptable. It's part of the system that applicants can come back if they want to amend or change a condition. They can make an application to do so, as I had done in this instance, and it would have to be considered on its merits. And clearly, that's what we've done. So when the original condition was imposed, that was because we were following what the applicant had asked for. It wasn't saying that was the only acceptable time until the unit could open too. So hopefully that's helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And so I will open it up to questions from officers, to officers rather, from members. So does anybody have any questions for Glenn or David or Lisa as highways expert? No questions? No, I'll just ask one. So on the basis of what David said, could you just confirm that the original application and the opening hours was presented by the applicant as given rather than negotiated down? Because I think there was an implication that they may have been negotiated down because of the public nuisance. It's Mr. Solaris, I see you're off muted. I'm asking the officers, you've had your time to speak now. So if you could just mute and keep quiet, I'd appreciate it. Okay, did you get that question, David, or have we lost it in the oh, Glenn's picking that up. Thank you.
No, that's right. The application was made for 7 till 7 opening, and as David said, we reflected that in the condition. Any reference in the report to things like public nuisance or disturbance to residential amenity in terms of sort of justifying that would have just simply been made in acknowledgement that those kind of hours would protect that. But as David has said, it doesn't preclude the fact that later opening hours might actually be acceptable anyway. But there was no real negotiations around opening hours last time, because obviously 7 o'clock in the evening would appear to be acceptable as a general thing. We didn't negotiate anything down.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions? No. So I'll move on to comments. So if people could again use the raise hand facility, but just perhaps summarize where you are with your thoughts on the application. There's no obligation to do that, but I think it would be helpful to see where you are. So I'll await any hands that are raised. I see no hands whatsoever. Okay. Oh, Councillor Jenkins.
Muted.
You're on mute, Councillor Jenkins.
Sorry. Okay. Yes, it looks as if Mr. Solaris has given some reassurances really on the nature of his business and the way in which it hopefully it doesn't impinge too much on the local neighbourhood. And I think we have to take him at his word at this moment.
Thanks, Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to say that I think the applicant has been more than fair with what they're requesting in this application. Regarding getting people to clear the area at the closing time, having run pubs myself, I think just a little bit of signage in that area will make it an awful lot easier for him just to encourage people to leave once the time is up. But I'm happy with the applicant's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments? Right. There doesn't appear to be any particular.
Hello.
Oh, Councillor
Hello.
Nash.
Yeah, I'm clicking away, trying to put a hand up, but can't. Anyway, I think that the applicant is being very reasonable. And I think what people forget that in the UK, it does get cold in the evening. And the back of the property is eastward looking, so it won't have any evening sun there either. I'm confident that if Mr. Solaris does clear the terrace at 9 o'clock, I don't think there will be any problems from residents. We're only looking really at high summer when people are going to be eating out there. So I'd like to, when the time comes, to approve this application.
Thank you for that, Councillor Nash. So my own thoughts are, I think I agree with the comments made earlier by other members. Just to say, there is no condition proposed under this panel to shut off that access to and from the disabled bay. And personally, as disability champion at Leeds City Council, and some of the feedback I've previously had from disabled people, they're not generally in favour of these special circumstances, because often you have people with hidden disabilities, and what we don't want is, you know, members of the public objecting, saying there's a restrictive condition that's being abused here, that this person's not disabled, and so on. So they're my thoughts. So I'm happy with the conditions as directed. So with that, I will ask if the lead planning officer David just wants to sum up the position.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the comments by members is that they've received some comfort from the assurances given by the applicant in terms of the management of the outdoors space and making sure that customers abide by the suggested planning conditions that are attached, that it's considered that it's a fair balance between the needs of the business and protecting residential amenity, and in that there will be an element of natural environmental factors such as the weather, which will to some degree restrict the use of the outdoor space. My understanding is that on that basis that the members appear to be content with the recommendation and the conditions as set out on page 37 to 38, but of course that can only really be tested by the vote, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councillor Collins has indicated, so I'll bring Councillor Collins in for.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered, ask officers, what would be the future situation if the applicant wanted to put an awning or some sort of canopy over the terraced area? Is there some way we could limit that and ask for another planning application? I'm just thinking that what we've discussed today is very much, we're saying we're dependent a bit on the British weather to limit that use. I'm just wondering whether we need to also put some condition in that anything that makes that a more enclosed space would need to be considered by officers under a planning application.
Thanks. Does someone want to pick that up?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I think on the basis of the point made by Councillor Collins about it facilitating a greater use of that outdoor space, I think it would be reasonable, because it's related to the application that we have before us, to impose another condition if members were so minded that any further structures within the outdoor space would require planning permission. So we could impose such a condition.
Okay, is that acceptable, Nikki from legal? Because I'm just conscious of permitted development, etc. If you
Yes, that is acceptable. The proposal relating to the restriction goes to the heart of the opening hours and its use. So you can control that through condition. It would meet the 5 tests. And clearly, if those amendments were being made, he'd be required now, if the condition is acceptable to members, to apply for permission for that separate, very narrow issue.
Thanks for that. Councillor Collins, your hand is still up. Is that?
That's an error, Chair. I'll take it down.
Okay, thank you. So based on the summary provided, I wondered if somebody wanted to move a motion which, well, the indication would be that it's as officer's recommendation with an additional condition. However, anybody's free to submit an alternative. Any proposers?
I will propose that no further structure be erected without planning permission on the terrace, but that the panel approve the application which is before us.
Thank you, Councillor Nash, for that. So we've had a proposal from Councillor Nash. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. So we'll now move on the vote on the motion as proposed and seconded. So I will go through you one by one in alphabetical order. And just before I do, I'll just quickly bring legal in. Obviously, Councillor Graham wasn't here at the very start, but I believe he's been here for the substantive part of the meeting and heard the objectors' comments, etc. So we'll just check that Councillor Graham's happy that he's able to make a decision, having heard what he's heard.
Would you like me to comment on this, Chair, or would you?
Well,
yeah, no, I can give you a narrative on that. So to give you the short answer, it's really a matter for the member to decide whether they are in possession of the true facts and all of the debate and the discussions and presentation and papers in order to make a decision. The Localism Act changed that requirement that they be there for the entirety. It's a matter for the member themselves. So it's really a matter for Councillor Graham as to whether he wishes, he's comfortable, he's accountable to his electorate and voters as to whether he wishes to take part.
Thank you.
Can I come in, Chair?
You can, Councillor Graham.
I've been listening to what I've actually been able to listen to. Inappropriate for me to vote, Chair, on this one.
All right, well, thank you. I'll move through the members, and then if you just clarify that when we come to you, as it probably is an abstention, I think. Okay, then. So first of all, Councillor Anderson. So we're voting on the motion, for or against or abstain.
Approve.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Collins.
I vote in favour of the motion, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Abstain, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jenkins.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Midgley.
I'm voting in favour of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Nash.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Approve, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith.
In favour, Chair.
Thank you. And as chair, I vote in favour of the motion as well. So just Debbie, it sounded unanimous, well, with one abstention, but I'll let Debbie give us the scores on the doors.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there are 4 votes for the motion to be carried and granting permission, and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so then that's been approved with that extra condition. I'm not sure David needs to.
I think it was 8 votes, wasn't it, or something? I think it wasn't 4.
Yes, you're right.
It was 8 votes for the motion to be carried.
Right. Yes, I was in my mind. 4 didn't sound a lot. And
No, sorry. Did you not? I did say 8 votes for.
Right. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sorry.
I was trying to do the maths in my head, thinking, oh.
No, it was 8 and 1 abstention. Thank you.
Okay. So that's cleared that up, and the motion has been carried. I'm not sure there's anything to summarise. I think we've covered it. So I'd just like to thank everybody, the objectors, and who obviously haven't got what they wanted. Mr. Solaris, I know it's a difficult time with this pandemic for lots of industry, particularly hospitality. So I certainly wish you well with that, and let's hope we get back to normal times very, very soon.
No,
and that,
thank you for this. Thank you very much.
And that concludes today's business. So thank you everybody for your attendance and contributions. I am sorry we still have the occasional technical hitch, but I do think the objectors' points were all made and covered fairly. So I'll declare the meeting closed and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. All right. Cheerio, everyone.
Switch off the web. You can switch off the webcast, Karen.